Okay, now let's talk about lights. I'm going to disable the second camera component right now by unchecking it, hitting save. If you go look at your little ellipses, I'm going to click on my main camera, go back to the culling mask, find this tiny little arrow, and click on custom ignore. So now this camera is rendering the custom ignore layer. Then I'm going to go to game object, create other, and you see that there are three different types of lights here: a point light, a spotlight, and a directional light. Now we created a directional light before, which was, if you go here in your hierarchy, a single source of light that cast over here, that cast rays in one direction across the entire scene. A point light, if you go to game object, create other point light, and move it into your scene here, it creates light but generated from a single origin in all directions. So if I move it close to these lerps guys, you can see in the game view a little bit right now that it's changing as I move it around. Right here in the color setting in the inspector, I'm going to change it to red to make it easier to see. So you can see that the red light is being cast from the middle of these two guys. And you move it around, you can see that it changes. You can also change this light dynamically here from a point light to a directional light to a spotlight. And a spotlight casts from a single origin, but only in one direction rather than all directions. So if I turn it toward one lerps, you see that it's only casting in one direction. And in the scene view, you can also see, just exactly what the definition of how the spotlight's casting is. Attenuate means that it fades away as it gets farther from the light. So if I move this light farther away, it gets dimmer. If you look on this lerps here in the game view, as I move it farther away, the light gets dimmer. If you uncheck attenuate, it won't do that. I'm going to check it again though. Intensity is the power of the light. You see as it gets all the way up, it's making this lerps white. You can hardly even distinguish the color from it. I'll put it back to 1. Range is the range of the light, which you can see change in the scene view as well. Spot angle is the angle of the light, how wide it casts. This is only a spotlight feature. Again, shadows are a Unity Pro only function, but you can set the types of shadows and how expensive they are, meaning how much processing power they use. A cookie is actually a texture. In theater and film vernacular, it's called a gobo. A cookie is just like a mask for the light, so it has areas of casting light and areas of casting dark into it. So you can kind of like a shadow puppet, I guess. Draw halo is a way to render a little halo around your light. You can use this for street lights or something, or just for effects. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. Flare is what your light generates when a camera looks at it. So right now you have this little small flare. You can also have a sun flare, which you might want to attach to a directional light, and a 50mm zoom flare, which is what you might get from a 50mm zoom camera lens looking into a light. But I'm going to go ahead and set that to none. Render mode is how the materials the light casts on treat the light. Force pixel means that every pixel in the materials is going to calculate where the light's coming from. Force vertex means that it's going to calculate the light from the direction the light's coming from, but not necessarily how it reacts to every pixel on a material. So force pixel looks better. but uses more processing power. And Force Vertex looks not as good, but is a lot easier on your computer. So you might want to use pixel lighting for some really key lights in your game, like the flashlight for your player, for example. But for most of your lights, you're going to want to make them vertex lights, just because it's going to really slow down your game if you have too many pixel lights. And then the culling mask is identical to how the camera culling mask works. You can choose which layers you display the light on and don't display the light on. So if you change this back to a point light by finding the tiny little arrows next to the light type here in the inspector, change it to point, you see that it's casting on both the lerpses right now. Both of them have this red glow. But in the culling mask, I'm going to find the drop-down menu and uncheck custom ignore again. And then you see that lerps, that's part of the custom ignore layer, doesn't have the light cast onto them anymore. So that's just a way to selectively cast light onto things.